that was like one of my proudest moments last year was, I got fifth at nationals after like I was wrestling on a sprained ankle and I just finished up Kellogg finals the week before. And I was like, dang, dude, I didn't know if I was gonna be able to get that done, but I was pretty proud of it when it was all said and done. It was
Gritty.
a whirlwind of the year, but yeah, it was fun.
Welcome to Iron Summit, where we cover topics about health, fitness, and general performance through the eyes of former elite Division I wrestlers.
We're live. All right,
We're live.
guys. We got a special guest today. 3-time All-American, NCAA Finalist, Junior World Silver Medalist, the Big Tuna, certified meathead, Lucas Davison. What's up, Luke?
What's up, guys?
Pumped to have you on, Luke. I was just thinking about it today, man. It's crazy, going from hosting you on a recruiting visit, living with you, you're my wedding, and it's been an absolute pleasure watching you wrestle. The one thing I do have to bring up, unfortunately, is like, how does it feel to be the smallest guy on the podcast right now?
You wish, dude. What are you weighing? Are you allowed to? Are you disclosing your weight these days?
I can't disclose that information. There's a pot going on, and once it hits a certain price point, there's a certain amount of people that get to hear that information.
Really? All I know is Ryan's not a heavyweight, so.
But
no,
Luke,
we need to say anything else.
Luke, you will find this interesting. Max and I wear the same size swimsuit.
We've hit this now in the last 6 episodes consecutively. One, it's just not true. Two, Ryan really liked this.
I love it.
One time I borrowed a pair of Ryan's swim trunks, which must have been the biggest swim trunks he's ever worn. And they were still pasted on me.
But they fit.
Not really. But define fit.
Luke, how much are you weighing?
I've come down a little bit since season. I stopped some of the calorie bomb shakes and just kind of letting my weight come down, see where I naturally land. And
yeah, where is that?
I was 225 yesterday, so down like 10 pounds since season. But
so we're about the same.
Yeah. You wish, dude. We'll see if you ever break 2 bills. You could keep trying as hard as you want.
Hey, another thing I was thinking about: how bad do you think Caitlin Clark would beat you in a basketball game? Because I've played basketball with you. And I think that she would just posterize you, dude.
She would posterize a lot of guys. I mean,
for sure, me. I am maybe the worst basketball player in the history of basketball.
Maybe one of the best things to do is get a bunch of wrestlers and have them go play basketball, because the hustle's there, the effort's there, but the touch with shooting is just not there.
That's what I was going to say about you. I was going to say for you, Ryan, you just look like you're playing rugby the whole time.
I won't even deny that. Definitely not a good basketball player, but I try hard,
Yeah,
I kind of pride myself. I pride myself in my lack of basketball skills.
Why?
Because that means I spend all my time wrestling, not playing basketball, which is obviously the right choice.
What do it is? I agree. Basketball's fun though. Hey, Luke, I got a question for you. What'd you think about 3-point takedown this year?
It worked out all right for me. I think I was a little unsure how it would affect me this year, but I think when I'm wrestling my style, it's good for me. When I'm wrestling closer matches and maybe not at my top end, then definitely doesn't help. So it forced me to kind of open up when I needed to.
Yeah.
What do you think overall for the sport?
I think it's good. I think it's definitely more fair. I mean, a reversal and a takedown shouldn't be the same value. I think
should or shouldn't?
Should now. I think,
dude, I disagree with you.
A reversal.
I agree. Yes.
I think
we're aligned.
Yeah, the effort. So if you're cutting somebody and if you get an escape, I really don't think that should be, half of a takedown. And I think a reversal should not be the same as a takedown.
My only thing is if you get taken down, let's say you slip on a wet spot, somebody takes you down and then you reverse them right away. It should be tied instead of you losing. But I do hear you. I definitely think that like the split between an escape to a takedown is better. Like I think overall the 3-point takedown seemed to work pretty well this year, but it was a little weird. There were some matches where like a guy sneaks a takedown and then the guy that was probably the better wrestler ended up in a big hole because the reversal didn't help him out really as much.
Yeah.
Especially like a short time situation with like going in overtime.
Mhm. I can see that. It definitely like it speeds up tax and but I mean, yeah, it doesn't really make sense that you take somebody down like 15 times and cut them 15 times. Like that's a match. Like
No, I
that's a
agree.
lot of work that's a
Yeah.
ton of work.
Well,
But
I think one thing they could do, I agree with you, Lucas, like reversal and takedown shouldn't be the same because Ryan's situation is maybe like 1 in 5,000 times someone slips and reverses someone. But uh, one thing I think they could do is, and I could see an argument, is maybe make a major like 10 points. You don't need to change the tack.
Yeah.
Maybe make it a little harder to get a major because you were seeing like, I had to like adjust the way I was looking at scores of wrestling matches, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, I got beat the crap out of that guy. And then you're like, wait, 3-point takedowns actually wasn't that bad of a beating when it's like 8-3. That used to
Yeah.
be a beating. Now it's like, that was actually like probably a decently close match. So maybe make a major like 10 points, but keep everything else the same. I like the rule.
I
can
think
see
that's
that.
interesting.
Valid.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. Like you talk about like all these records at the NCAAs and stuff. It's like we're comparing apples to oranges because so many more bonus points happen because of this. And it seems like the best guys still won matches. So I don't think it like changed the outcome that many times in a match. But it was interesting to see how many like you're really close. It could be like 2-2 and you major the guy in the third period pretty easily. And I think, like you said, Luke, it plays well to your wrestling. It kind of aged, Max and myself because, back in our day, it was 2-point takedowns. But
Cool.
back in
Back
our
in the
day,
old times.
Only 5 years of my college wrestling had 2-point takedowns.
I love that. Luke, I want to talk a little bit about, obviously, your brother and you wrestled together growing up. What was that like? And then maybe touching a little bit too on, kind of having a little bit of pressure with, your dad was a very successful college wrestler as well. If you felt that growing up. And then, eventually, I guess, just side note, you and your brother, I think most brothers, I had the pleasure of living with you guys for a year and I thought, most brothers fight a little bit. You guys get along the best I've ever seen out of any brother crew. And so I think it's really, really cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Andrew, he's really special, man. He's like one of the sweetest, most enjoyable dudes to be around, and super thoughtful guy, and ton of fun to be around. So, I mean, that was a huge choice living with him and bringing him aboard at Northwestern. But yeah, I mean, the first question. So, I had 2 older brothers, and I wrestled them the whole way up, and we're all like same exact weight. My dad was my freshman year, I was 160. Oldest brother Jack was 170. Andrew was 182, and so we're all in the lineup together, and like just tons of practice partners and guys that could kick my butt. And I think that was a huge reason why I developed so much. And eventually, I had 3 years in high school with Andrew and just 1 with my oldest brother, but I wrestled with them the whole way coming up, and just having like I didn't have to go for it all to get my butt kicked, and I think that was a huge reason why I think I demonstrated a lot of like just small like marginal growth each year, and it was a trend throughout much of my career, just like small incremental gains, and I think a lot of that was just because I always had people that could kind of kick my butt. So that along with my dad, like he was a practice partner and he would still love to get on the mat and drill if we were still wrestling and stuff. But yeah, there wasn't a ton of pressure. I think he was always just like poured into us and wanted to see us do our best. And I know he got a ton of pride out of seeing me do well this last year and the last couple of years, really. Just because he's invested so much in us and he just wants the best for us. So he was really good about supporting us and not making it about like anything other than just kind of consistent growth. And he wanted to see the best for us. And I actually got a question after I won my semifinal at NCAA's, and they had like the little press conference kind of deal, and they were like, "So, Lucas, you've had your dad, coaching you the whole way growing up. Like, I'm sure he's still sending you text messages and stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, like, doesn't matter what match it is, but my dad's probably still going to give me his 2 cents on things." And it's funny when I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, and but yeah, he's just always one of the best for me, and it's good advice. Good advice.
How do you
Was he your coach growing up? Like coached you throughout high school and stuff?
Yeah, he was an assistant coach and at our high school, but like he ran a lot of our club stuff and did a lot of individuals with me before school, after school, and he is a really good coach because he was able to he wrestled however many 30 years ago at this point, 30 plus years ago, and so um he's done a good job of like adapting. Like he watches a ton of wrestling and stuff, and I think he doesn't like want me to just wrestle the style that he wrestled 30 plus years ago. He wants me to wrestle like what the best, most advanced wrestlers are doing now. So that's something I always appreciated in him, is just like being dynamic and kind of seeing where the ball's going and not maybe where it was.
Absolutely. And I think it's special that your dad and you have a great relationship and he was able to do that, because I think I think the normal is most parents that wrestled, they kind of ruin it for their kids, unfortunately. So maybe you could talk on that a little bit. Like if you were a parent, what would be your advice to a parent? What would you look in, you have a son and you're coaching him growing up. Cause I think it goes one of two ways. There's guys that are like, I'm coaching my kid, I'll help out, be there whenever. And then other guys that are like, yeah, if he wants me, I'm here, but really I don't want to help him out, have another person coach him. And I think it's a fine line. So the fact that he navigated that so well, I think is super unique and special.
Yeah, yeah, and you kind of you hit on it a little bit. Just like having a father-son coaching relationship it's a tough relationship, and I'm not saying like every day was sunshine and rainbows, because it did get a little heated sometimes, and I was just like, "Dad, I need some time away from you," and set some boundaries every now and then. Just like I remember especially like it was kind of stressful for me when I was getting recruited. Like senior year, took my 5 official visits, and like every conversation that we had in our family it was just me at home, me with my 2 parents, and we'd like sit down for dinner, and it'd be conversation about wrestling. And I was like, "Can we please just no wrestling talk at the dinner table? I want to have like one period of the day that I'm not focused on wrestling." But so I think that's part of it. It's just like setting some boundaries, and it was important that like he knew that it kind of had to come from me. So like he was always there for me, and he definitely showed me the way of like extra workouts kind of help you make the gains on those people that aren't doing them, and being consistent with like conditioning and strength training and extra technique is kind of what makes the gains. So he never forced me to do anything like that. It was just like open invitation, and he showed me the way. But kind of after that, then we just had a system of like Tuesday mornings we go in before school, and we wrestle and we work on this stuff. It's nothing too hard, but it's just he's kind of helped me fine tune some things. So I think open communication, and just like a parent's got to be willing to like maybe take a step back if the kids had a little too much. So I think that's definitely huge.
I was coached by my dad growing up too. And one thing, I'm curious how your dad approached it, because I think it's probably a common theme among father-son coaching relationships that are successful. But how did your dad approach like winning and losing?
Yeah, he was awesome. I mean, my parents have always been the same way. Just all they want to see is 100% effort, and I feel like that kind of support. Like as long as I go out there and I just wrestle my butt off and try to score points, do all that stuff, and they're gonna be happy and supportive. And that was my dad's biggest thing, is he's like so anti-quitting, like hates quitting more than anything. We'd be playing racing video games and stuff, and like you could be in 14th place on the last lap, and he's like, "Don't you dare freaking restart that game." Like that's just how much he hates quitting. Like even if it's a waste of time, it's just some of those things are it's like wrestling back. Like it's the same thing, and you got to keep fighting for the next best thing. So they were always supportive. Like it didn't matter if I got pinned a couple times, beat, whatever. They were just, really proud of my effort, I think, and just want me to get that one back.
Yeah. I think it's a huge distinction in when those relationships are successful is when the emphasis is taken off of result. And we talk about this in like just a mindset towards any competitive endeavor. When mindset is taken off of results and put on like effort, like you said, all your dad cared about, you didn't quit and you wrestled hard. Like then that allows that relationship to flourish rather than, and I think a lot of times parents try and put it, and it's not like it's out of bad intentions. It's just a little bit of misguided intentions when the result is really heavily placed on the result rather than the effort or something that you can control better in wrestling, particularly.
What about too, Luke? I think obviously maybe this is a big assumption to make, but I'm sure your relationship changed when you went to college a little bit too, where he's kind of taken a back seat as your coach when you got your main coach as your day-to-day stuff. And I'm sure as a parent, that's probably tough. So how did that relationship change? And was that like a tough adjustment or like what went on when you went to college and, you're around all these high level coaches that are kind of your day-to-day guys?
Yeah, I think my dad, he handled it really well. Like he was still involved for the first couple of years. He was still coaching locally and stuff. So I think he definitely missed having that experience with me. But he felt like I was in really good hands. He actually was like he introduced me to Andrew Howe, and Andrew Howe was my main man for
The
uh,
man.
the man at Northwestern, and I worked with him on a daily basis, and my dad just felt really good about that because he always admired Howe since when he was in high school. He grew up like 30 minutes away from me, and
Mhm.
so I watched him a ton in high school, and my dad would bring him in for wrestling camps and stuff, and just it started that appreciation and really early on in my life, and once I'm getting coached by this guy who's just an absolute animal, insane technician, all these things, like um, I think my dad was just felt like I was in a good spot, didn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a cool like case study on how you should, grow up and raise your kids through wrestling and how your relationship changes over time. And not, I don't know, making it about yourself and whatnot. So that's sweet and big props to Keith on that. That's awesome. One other thing.
Before we move on from Keith, I have a funny story about Keith. He actually dealt me one of the greatest insults of my life.
What happened?
He not really.
Yes.
He came out, I think it was after Tulsa. We were at the airport. I'm a bigger guy wearing a Lehigh wrestling shirt. And your dad came up to me. He goes, "Are you Zach Ray?"
No way.
I was like, bro. No, I'm just kidding. If Zach listens to this, I'm kidding. It
Oh,
wasn't an insult.
let's
But
send it to
it was
Zach.
it was
Yeah.
an insult. I was like, no, I'm the other Lehigh heavyweight. The one, yeah.
That's funny. You're like,
Zach.
I'm not, no.
I'm not redheaded. One, two. I'm
Hey,
not
come on.
280. Come on. Nah, just kidding. It was funny.
Luke, just knowing your story a little bit too, obviously you take weightlifting very seriously. Want to touch on that stuff. But one, I think, pivotal point in your career was, making the decision going from 97 to heavyweight. You want to walk us through a little bit like what happened, that year? I think it was kind of amazing, with everything going on. And then, flipping your gears from, cutting a bunch of weight to like, now I got to put on a bunch of mass, and how your training kind of shifted throughout that.
Yeah. Coming off COVID, I think we were lucky. We were one of the first guys at Northwestern to come back to campus, and we'd been training throughout that time. And mat space was kind of hard to come by. A lot of times, like driving up to 2 hours to get on a mat. So just naturally turned to lifting weights over COVID and kind of put some good lean mass on. And once we came back to campus, I think you'll remember, Ryan, that we were in just like a crazy hypertrophy training block, and it was like lifting 4 days a week, like all like super high sets and reps, and just staying after that for whatever we got back in September, and we had like good 5 months of maybe 4 months of like good hard lifting, and I just put on a lot of lean mass and I grew. And so when season came around, I think I was just naturally bigger, had more muscle, and I ended up getting injured like the day of our wrestle offs, and then injury kind of spiraled, got infected, and um, so I was just never in a good routine of like cutting down to make weight, and I think I was heavy coming in, and so it was hard for me like to even bend my knee. So I was just riding assault bike like arms only or whatever it was I could do, and for that reason I was cutting up to like high 20s to almost 30 pounds for a couple of the weigh-ins. So it was really tough, and definitely wasn't wrestling like my best self. Not everybody can just cut their nuts off like you, Ryan, and still
Stop.
perform at their
Hey,
peak.
one pause on that. Luke hadn't wrestled in forever. We're at Big Tens. It was at Penn State. And there was no way Luke was going to make weight. Like, it was physically impossible. Dude was like 230 and then had to make weight the next day. And like, we're like,
230. I was 12 over after day one. I was 12
like,
over.
we're eating bowls in the room. And I'm like, Luke, are you sure you should be eating that? Because I know, like, I'm not even going to eat the whole bowl. Like, and I'm, 5 pounds over maybe at this point. And Luke is just tough mofo, just is like, I'm going to make weight, figures it out. His knee's not working. And I was mad impressed. And you definitely like took you a little while to feel all right after weigh-ins. Like, it was definitely a huge shocker on your body. And then just mentally was like, I don't care. Went out there and just, dominated guys, even though you arguably had like the hardest weight cut of the weekend and nobody thought you were going to actually make weight. So I was super proud of you during that. And definitely a huge highlight of that year was the fact that you're like, I don't care. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to make weight. And I that was sweet. That was sweet.
Yeah.
I have a
thanks.
question, Luke. Because I came from 197 as well, and I cut quite a bit of weight to make it for a while. And so how like heavyweights are thought of as like, these guys, they don't cut weight. They're just fat pieces of shit. They're eating the sandwich on the back. So I start to take I still take it a little personally when I get like lumped in with the heavyweight mentality. You feel that ever?
I don't ever, a little bit. Like, everybody just thinks your life is so easy, you're heavyweight and stuff, which in large part it is, but I'm like, dude, I'm still putting in all the same work as you. It's just the difference is that I, probably feel a little bit better coming into some of those workouts. And I feel like a lot of people you'll see some people that like kind of shirk off the weightlifting during season. And I think heavyweights and some of our 97s and maybe 84s were guys that were the only ones who were like truly 100% invested in that. And so, like, there are some times where you are maybe putting in a little bit more effort and a little bit more intentional about your training.
Yeah. Another thing, Ryan and I talk about this too. Eating a lot is not fun either. It's just not as crappy as cutting weight, like, and not feeling good for your workouts. There's still a lot of work that has to be done though.
Yeah, it's insane. I remember, so Max actually sent me some macros last summer, probably around the same time. And, dude, I was like 450 carbs a day.
That was their off day.
So I think there was 600 on the big days.
Oh my gosh, dude. It was literally insane. Like, I just trying to shovel that much food in me was, absolutely nuts. I don't think I've ever felt so stuffed for an entire day in my life, but yeah, it's definitely hard work.
So Luke, going back to that story, you make weight at Big Tens and kind of that transition, I guess, from 97 to heavyweight, the end of that year. You were talking about kind of your knee infection and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, went through the season, wasn't at my top end. Just, I a lot of times, like, at tournaments, I'd wrestle flat like the first match. So a little bit of it was like, make it through that first match, kind of blow out the weight cut. And then I usually felt pretty confident after that. And so like I got better as the day went on, but I had to make weight again. And so it was just a challenge, and it didn't wrestle at my top end. I definitely felt like I was better than I was wrestling. And so after NCAAs were all said and done, I was just sitting on the bus coming back from St. Louis, and I remember kind of being bummed, my head's down, and Andrew Howe came walking back, and I was like, oh man, I wonder what he's got for me. And he's like just open up conversation like, hey man, I think, you got the frame and the athleticism to be a really good heavyweight. And if you'd like to, we'd, like to see you bump up to heavyweight. And so, at first I was like, oh man, I kind of have some unfinished business down at 97. And I really wanted to, get on the podium and make things right while I was down there. But I think once my weight like settled after my body healed up and stuff, I was like sitting around 230 and I was like, dude, the heavyweight's going to be freaking sweet. I get to lift and eat a ton. So, it was great, man. It was a great adjustment for me. And I feel like, it's just, it's kind of a lesson on all wrestlers. Like you're never going to regret like bumping up and cutting less weight so that you feel better and you can go into practice with the intention of becoming a better wrestler and not just like, I have to lose X number of pounds today. So that's the best part about it is it just becomes so much more fun when, you're focused on optimizing your performance and not just like, cutting a bunch of weight and dehydrating yourself and making yourself miserable. So it's pretty cool. And I think I would definitely advise, anybody that's kind of on the border of cutting weight and bumping up to just consider bumping up and wrestling more freely and getting the most out of your training.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. But Luke, also, like that being said, you talk about it like humbly, like it was like, yeah, this is great. But like there was a lot of hard work and a lot of shifts for you too, because you trade your old problems for new problems, right? Like, I mean, we had this 10 o'clock alarm where, you hear the blender going because Luke's got a 2000, I think one time we measured it, like 20, I don't know, 400 calories in your shake that you're drinking every night, trying to get 2 or 3 of those in the day. Where you're just sick of eating, you're getting extra lifts in, how'd your training change there, once you decided? Because obviously it's like, now you got to put on some mass, you got to top end at 285 and you're weighing 225, 230.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly didn't change the training a ton outside of, added a couple more lifts, like tried to lift more throughout the season and keep some of that muscle mass on and stay strong, feel strong. So added a couple lifts and then, I did all the same mat time as everybody else. I've heard a lot of stories of heavyweights that like don't wrestle more than like 2 times during the season. Like during the week, they're just come on the mat like 2 or 3 times. And that really wasn't for me. I wanted to be the best wrestler I could be. And I felt like I had a lot of technique to adjust. And so I love the early morning one-on-ones and just, fine tuning things and trying to become a better wrestler is what it was all about for me. And so more lifting, I still wrestled my butt off and the nutrition piece was a huge element that I kind of had to dial in and had to consult dietitians and other people that have gone through it before and just kind of see what they did and find what worked for me. And really, I never really like pounded a ton of food to the point of feeling sick during season, just because I felt like I needed to be able to perform at practice and all that stuff. So definitely were some times where I was uncomfortable just because I ate so much, but I tried to make it some level of balance that I could still feel my best in training and get the most out of it. I do there was actually kind of a pivotal moment in my career. My first year up at heavyweight, I think Ryan kind of stumbled into my room at like it was like 10 p.m. and he's like, "Hey man, I've been thinking about something." He's like, "You should start putting more weight on now. You should try to, at least put on like 5-10 pounds. And then, if you like it, you keep it on. If you don't, it's a lot harder to put weight on in 2 weeks than it is to over like a 2 or 3 month stretch." So I remember that being something I was like, dang it, I got to figure this out. So it was definitely like, that was a, important moment that kind of helped me put a couple extra pounds on and feel strong and just recommit to like, I want to be a heavyweight. I want to be strong and make sure I'm feeling myself as much as I should be.
Yeah, I think there's a huge mental side of it too, man. Like you did a great job of flipping that switch, but I'm sure it came with some struggles too, where it's like, I mean, you're this jacked dude that's, super lean and it's like, somebody's asking you to get a little fluffy to put on some weight and, just naturally you're going to have to put on some fat with this weight. And understanding also, like, I think one of your biggest concerns, just talking with you a little bit too, is like making sure you feel good throughout it, making sure you're like wrestling and the weight feels good, not like, um, I don't know, most people after season, they feel like crap for a couple weeks when they have got a extra weight and they feel like their conditioning, stinks now because they're not used to it. So how did you struggle with that a lot, or what'd you do to put kind of that at ease with the fact that like, hey, you're gonna put on some chub and you're gonna have to put on some weight, and obviously you really didn't put on much chub. You did put a lot of great weight on, but I mean, it was obviously part of just accepting that too going forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just trusted, you know, what you and other kind of mentors to me were telling me. And it was a little bit of a Jesus take the wheel moment, or just I had to kind of do what's best for me and see where it led. So it worked out. And, um, I don't think I thought about it too much. It was just trying to make sure I snuck in some extra calories where I could. And um, the weight kind of came naturally just over time. So it wasn't too hard. I didn't like really spike my weight at any point. Just kind of naturally added, you know, half a pound a week or whatever. And by the end of the season, my first year at heavyweight was actually my heaviest. That was, I think I got up to like 242 was my peak at NCAA. So
You look so much bigger than that, dude. Max and I were talking about it this year. He's like, "How much do you think Luke weighs?" I don't know, man. But you, no, you definitely look like you got bigger, even if you didn't. And also, I think just knowing you, like the discipline of, we're on trips and you're bringing, a blender to make smoothies and stuff, because when you travel, you're going to lose weight because you're not in your normal routine to get that extra food. You definitely planned your lifestyle to make sure that it was like in line with your goals and your priorities, which is, I think, super important and awesome. But I definitely saw you always taking that super seriously too.
Yeah,
yeah.
that is a super important. I'm curious. So you went from Northwestern to Michigan, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier. There are different. We had Zach Ray on the podcast a few episodes ago, talked about how differently they treat heavyweight training than like a 33 training. Sounds like you kind of kept your wrestling volume up, but was there any differences between your training as a heavyweight at Northwestern versus Michigan? Kind of how did you make that adjustment?
Um, in large part, I think things stayed pretty constant. I mean, we had like the practices kind of lined up just about the same. They had this similar structure. I mean, everything was really the same, just like a lot of morning wrestling, afternoon wrestling, and lifts as needed and stuff. And they at Michigan, I think they had a ton of flexibility just because we had some transfers joining the program and stuff, and they did a really good job of kind of letting us have a say in things, because we've been doing it for 5 years. And I think they know, like, we can't completely change your system. Like, we're gonna have to adapt to you as we're adapting to them a little bit too. So they did a really good job of like sitting us down and kind of asking what we needed. And if we needed a day off here or there, they'd give it to us and stuff. So um, things are really similar. They're flexible at both Northwestern and Michigan, and just I think the emphasis was just always growth in the wrestling area. So that was the biggest thing.
How many times a week did you? I'm just curious because I like hearing the different perspectives. How many times a week did you wrestle live as a
Uh,
heavyweight, like in season, let's say?
yeah. So let's say we wrestled Saturday, off Sunday, Monday. Um, it would usually be like a lift in the morning, and then just like skills and drills in the afternoon. No live. Tuesday would probably be a tougher practice. Individual in the morning, then no live at individual. I don't know. Probably our longest day of live would be that Tuesday night, and then off Wednesday, Thursday if we were competing on Saturday again. Um, we'd have just practice with a quick burst of live, and I don't know, maybe 6 minutes, 6 or 7 minutes on Thursday, and then um, I don't think we wrestled much live on Friday at all. Like a 7-minute spar, I think, was the most we did, and then compete on Saturday. So you really kind of do scale that volume back just when you're competing, Saturday to Saturday. And once you start adding double duels and stuff, which fortunately we didn't have too many of, you really have to scale things back. So it was, we're fortunate to have a pretty dang good schedule this year, and we had a lot of downtime, and in December that was, and but yeah, it was not a ton of live really, but a lot of good reps and stuff.
Yeah, what too, like Luke, I think something that you have a unique perspective, and honestly, Max, I'd love to hear your opinion too, because I think it's just a heavier weight class situation where you don't always have a lot of different like variety of training partners. And so how are you, obviously looking for improvement and growth every practice? How are you thinking about that and getting something out of, maybe a guy that you wrestle a couple days a week where, a middleweight guy, wrestles a different guy every single day, gets a lot of different looks and feels, where you kind of got to create your own growth plan around, one or two partners?
Yeah. So I would say the situation you're describing more closely resembles my time at Northwestern for the first 5 years. Michigan's got an incredibly deep room around 97 in heavyweight, both freestylers and folk stylers. So, I had a ton of different partners and at Michigan, but that's not really a luxury I had for a lot of my time at Northwestern. I think, I wrestled with a wide range of guys as heavyweight at Northwestern, just anyone from like 84 up to, we didn't really have too many other heavyweights for my first couple of years. We had one, Jack Ayab, he's my man, but he's like your typical like unmovable object, just incredibly strong and stuff. So I could get that feel. And but really I like wrestling with like 97s or 84s that like to put up a lot of action and roll around and get funky and stuff. So all that stuff's fun for me, and I really like to let it fly. So I was lucky to have Andrew and I mean, we wrestled so much that like it was just a lot of headbutting and just, it was tough. Every day was going to be a tough match.
The
like
Smash Bros.
Yeah, it was just smash mouth wrestling, and it was always close. Like I would like tune up Andrew like once a week on like a bad day, and then we'd have like really close matches that I was like, dang, dude, I really thought I should be beating this guy by more, but we just knew each other really well, and it was always tough scraps. So yeah, it was fun. I had some fun partners. Joe Rao is a Greco guy, so I had to watch out for his diabolical head pinch and whatever.
Big guy, little guy
moves.
days with
Oh my
Jimmy
gosh.
too.
Yeah, I wrestled with Jimmy a lot too. My first couple of years there. So
Jimmy
I had
Kennedy, the Terminator, strongest little guy ever, freaking going with Luke. It was so funny in the off season. I'd look over and I'm like, why are Luke and Jimmy wrestling? And they like, Jimmy's just that dude that can like hold good position. It was funny. They do big guy, little guy days.
That's awesome. I totally identify with liking wrestling like the 84, 97 type a lot more. Maybe that's just because we both came from that weight class, but and wrestling like there's like my main training partner was Zach Ray, and like you can't do anything to Zach, but it's also a really good feel because you get a lot of guys like that at the heavyweight weight class. So it's good that you had Hayab to give you that feel a little bit. But also we're able to scrap and kind of keep your lighter weight class style, which, it's apparent in the way you wrestle. It's part of, I think it's also kind of the way the heavyweight weight class is moving is if you look at the podium this year, like most of the guys, and not even this year, the last, we'll call it 8, 9 years, 10 years, the top 8 guys have shifted from being like kind of bigger, less athletic guys to being like really athletic, kind of more like 230 to 260. And this year, I mean, on the podium, besides, Colton, was there anyone that filled like Colton Schultz? Was there anyone that really filled out the weight? No.
Yeah, I don't think so. More lean meat up there this year.
Yeah, I think, and that's like definitely a trend. So it's the way the weight class is going. I think it's like people are understanding that the trade-off is like for size over speed, and athleticism is it's definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
The proof is pudding.
New age heavyweight for sure.
More fun for a spectator, that's for sure too.
One other thing, Luke, touching on academics, athletics together, like what'd you think about balancing a course load like that with wrestling? Obviously you're in, most days twice a day, plus you got a full school schedule. You're not doing, pushover stuff. You got an undergrad from Northwestern, got a master's from Northwestern, and then you did a program at Michigan as well. So what'd you do with that? How'd you think about that? How was that adjustment from high school to college?
Yeah. The adjustment from high school to college was, tough at first, I think, just because I didn't really know what I was doing. I started off pre-med, going to be a doctor, and, pretty quickly got humbled in some of those chem classes. And I was like, maybe I should look to something else. So I think that's something that you really should take a wide variety of classes when you first get to college, just because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and I got to explore things a little bit. So, one thing led to the next, and I got to my learning and organizational change was a major that was a little bit more flexible on things. And it gave me the ability to, if I was doing like an engineering major, some of my buddies are up to like 2 a.m. every night studying. They wake up to study before practice or whatever the heck it is. And they go to class all day, and then they go to practice, and they're just always exhausted. And I was like, I don't think that I'm going to be able to reach my top end in wrestling with a major like that. So I kind of wanted to find something that was a little bit more of a balance between like, it gives me a lot of business fundamentals, and, I could still put in the time and get morning workouts in if I wanted to. And, just make sure I was kind of optimizing my performance in both arenas. So I think that was a great change for me. And, you and I, Ryan, both did the same master's through Kellogg, which is a, fairly graded program. And I think, I don't know if it's as tough as like the engineering course load. It's a lot of work and a lot of group work and collaboration. And the thing that was tough for me with that was that, it also incorporated another like hour 30 of commute into my day every day. And so with that and like the less flexible classes, I kind of had to learn how to restructure my day with things. So, yeah, it was tough, man. It was gritty going through Kellogg. I think you felt it a little bit. You were online for years, but,
yeah, I got lucky. COVID kind of shut down the commute for it, but no, I totally feel you. That adding an extra hour of commutes at least a day, and then you add Chicago weather too. Plus you got all this schoolwork, plus you got practice, lifts, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we should like recognize that for a moment, because a lot of people think like your fifth year, you're kind of chilling, taking like usually for most people it gets easier.
It's the hardest year. Yeah.
And you did like Kellogg, major or Kellogg masters your fifth year. Like that's an impressive thing to take on and to have the success you did have while doing it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I remember that was like one of my proudest moments last year was, I got fifth at nationals after like I was wrestling on a sprained ankle, and I just finished up Kellogg finals the week before. And I was like, dang, dude, I didn't know if I was gonna be able to get that done, but I was pretty proud of it when it was all said and done.
Gritty.
It was, whirlwind of the year, but yeah, it was fun. I think that's sort of like, the grind and the time management and, a lot of those classes you're drinking from a fire hose. And I think that's really important just to, I think I really needed that sort of like grind in the academic sense to, it's just really important to learn how to work your butt off like that in a work or academic sense, and also still be able to perform athletically and just be dynamic on that sense. So I think that was huge for me, and it definitely helped me become a better worker and more efficient. And I learned so much in that program. So it was good for me. I'm super glad I did it.
You were a student athlete. It's a dying concept, but you did it.
Luke, how'd your training change too as you got older? I think big guys tend to get hurt more. And then you just talk about a wrestling load on anybody's body. As you're a 6-year guy, you got to be smart about that. What'd you do differently your last 2 years or so I remember Hal sitting me down. I don't know if he told you this too, but like one day he's like, "You're not 18 anymore, man. You gotta like take some off days and whatnot." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." But I think that you did a great job of staying healthy. How'd you think about that? How'd it change?
Um, I mean, I think I was super fortunate. I definitely learned a lot from you and Andrew Howard, and just like the guys at Northwestern and at Michigan just really value, rest, and that's a huge part of training. So I think I was fortunate to have learned that early, is that, you know, rest is an important piece of training, and if you're kind of not giving yourself that time, then you're definitely way more injury prone. But I think for a big guy who's pretty muscle bound, I think I always invested in the flexibility component, which has been good for me. And I think that there's a lot of injury prevention that you get through strength training, as well as the flexibility, and kind of being able to manage those things definitely helps. And I was lucky to really make it through college with only pretty minor injuries. I had a scope meniscus and a sprained ankle. So um, some other minor things and stuff, I'm sure, but I was really fortunate to be healthy, and I think I just coming up to heavyweight, I was able to nourish my body, and I poured in on nutrition and made sure I was getting enough protein and carbs and all that stuff, and um, yeah, so just nutrition, rest, flexibility, strength, like all those areas kind of pour into that injury prevention. And I think it was part of what helped me have such a long and, for the most part, healthy career.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I think that's I don't know, such an important part of it. And I think you see all these high schoolers coming up now that have like 3 surgeries before they get to college, and you wonder what kind of longevity of career they have.
Mhm.
And then obviously like there's freak accidents, stuff happens with wrestling, but you were an avid, cold tub person, you got good nutrition. And so you definitely took that seriously, which it's hard to measure how much that helps, but like obviously having a sprained ankle and a scope meniscus is like extremely healthy as far as a college athlete goes. So,
For sure.
definitely can't emphasize that point enough. What's your next steps, Luke? Obviously, you're done here. You finish up in a couple weeks here in May with school. What are you thinking next steps?
Still trying to figure that out. I'm entertaining some, professional development, or maybe chasing a career, but the door's open for me to continue wrestling too. So I got to figure out where my heart's at. Just take some time to relax and let the body heal up, and um, try to let my heart guide me.
I love it.
With maybe I'll put you on the spot here. If you do continue wrestling, if you choose that, will you go 97 or 97 kilos or 125 kilos?
Ooh, that's a great question. I love that question.
I don't know. We just started that discussion the other day. I was talking to more Matt, and um, part of that, like I told you, my weight's dropped like 10 pounds in a matter of 2 weeks. And I think it'll level out at a certain point, but I'm already within range of that 213. It's pretty easy cut, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I'd probably have to talk to the coaches a little bit more, but um,
So assuming not going to hold you to anything, but assuming you'd probably stick around in Michigan and train for senior level stuff.
yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a pretty dang good environment, just with so many guys around my weight, and it's a system that seemed like it worked really well for me this year. And they invest a lot in the RTC, and they got pretty great results the last few years. So yeah, we'll see.
Well,
Love it.
yeah, whichever way you go, I think you'll find success. If you do want to go heavyweight and get up to 270, you know who to call.
Too.
We get John 600 carbs again, really.
Yeah.
No.
But also, dude, I can't tell you how hyped we got when you got that takedown in your quarterfinals match just a couple of weeks ago with like a second left. That was awesome, brother. It was fun watching you compete this year, man. And yeah, no, we're excited to see your next steps. Obviously, you're a guy you'd want in the trenches with you. Just a great heart, great human. Really appreciate everything, man. I feel lucky that I was able to, train alongside you and get to learn and grow with you. So that was That was awesome. We really appreciate you coming on, man. And definitely we'll talk sometime offline here soon too.
Heck yeah. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on, and our summit, baby. Let's go.
Let's
go.
go.
Thank you.